Welcome back, MTN Nets podcast, reacting to this Nets loss at Miami on this Thursday night. Nets dropped to 6-6 on the year. They lose by 7, 122-115. As always, leave a like, subscribe, follow the Twitter, all that stuff. Follow the X, whatever it's called now. But a frustrating game. It's one of those games where I felt like the Nets had their moments. I think at one point they were up 52-47. You're thinking they might be able to take this game, but Miami was just a better team. They're on a winning streak right now. They're playing great ball. I will say this is the first time the Heat have beaten the Nets with this new core of Bridges and Cam Johnson and Dinwiddie DFS. I feel like the Nets beat them twice at the end of last year. They beat them in the preseason. They beat them earlier this year. So they really had the Heat's number so far during this new era of the Nets. But unfortunately, Miami, they're just on a roll right now, and the Nets had no answer for guys like Jimmy Butler in isolation situations. Duncan Robinson was left open for three way too many times tonight. Adebayo had a nice game, had a nice dunk on Claxton. Those guys definitely got into it tonight. So just one of those frustrating losses where they weren't able to, bring it within about five. Felt like the entire second half. I mean, the way they closed at halftime was the worst part of all. The Nets were like right there. They were like either up one or down one or something. They were right there with about 2 minutes to go in the second quarter, right before halftime. And the Heat went on this like 14-0 run to close out the half. And I think they went in up by 8 points. So that really was a killer. A team like the Nets where Cam Thomas is out. And by the way, I talked to you guys the game after Cam Thomas got hurt. So we didn't have like a timeline for how long he'd be out for. They said 2 weeks. It's really not that bad. I think 2 weeks was probably best case scenario for the Cam Thomas ankle injury. So that was probably like a week ago. So I feel like it could have been a lot worse is what I'm trying to say. The Ben Simmons injury, we'll touch on that a bit later. But the point I was getting to was the Nets are definitely lacking scoring right now. You're still getting a ton of points from Lonnie Walker, who continues to step up, even with that left knee injury. It's just more admirable that he's like out here playing so well. So, shout out to him for playing through the injury and playing very well. But, at least Mikal Bridges gave us 23. Cam Johnson the last two games has looked better. He was 3 of 6 tonight. He looked really good in the game on Sunday. So hopefully he's coming around now. But let's go through the numbers here. So DFS, he played 32 minutes. He was 3 of 4 from 3, 4 of 6 from the field, 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal. Did have 3 turnovers. Scored 11 points total, was a minus 11. He had his moments. Like he made, as I said, 3 of 4 from 3. I can remember a few threes where they really needed it and he knocked it down. So he's been a pretty reliable shooter this year, aside from like maybe 1 or 2 games. But I would say out of the 12 Nets games this year, I feel like DFS has shot really well in about, 9 or 10 of them. So he's been great so far this year. The defense was, it could have been a bit better. I feel like Jimmy Butler, got the best of him a couple times, but, it happens. Cam Johnson, as I mentioned, looking better. 5 of 10, 3 of 6 from 3. It was perfect at the line on 3 free throws. 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and 16 points total was a team best plus 18. And Cam definitely had some shots that the Nets needed to stay in the game. He knocked them down, so, he was a big part in keeping the game close. Mikal Bridges played 35 minutes. He was 6 of 15. Still not shooting the ball too efficiently this year, but, did go 9 of 10 at the line. You love seeing that. Did have 7 rebounds, 5 assists, but had 3 turnovers. Had that one bad turnover where he was, I think it was Josh Richardson, got a steal behind him. The Heat got a dunk out of it on a fast break. But aside from that, it wasn't that bad of a Mikal Bridges game. I just wish he was shooting more efficiently, but hopefully that gets better as the years go on, or not the years, as the games go on. Well, years too. He should be here for a bit. But yeah, as the games go on. Nick Claxton was tremendous in the first half. Not as great in the second half, but Claxton was 7 of 7, 2 of 4 at the line. He did have 6 rebounds, had 2 assists, had 3 blocks, a couple really nice blocks, had 1 on Butler. I forget who the other one was on, but he had some nice blocks in this game. He did have 16 points total, so that's great for him. Him and Bam Adebayo really got into it. Claxton got hit with a technical at one point. I forget who it was, but he had somebody in a headlock. Not Draymond Green level, but it was like he was going for an offensive rebound. He put one of the Heat guys in a headlock and brought him to the ground. So they did call a technical foul for that. But, Claxton was really effective tonight. I just wish he played that way the entire game. Felt like in the fourth quarter, especially after Bam Adebayo muscled him down in the post and dunked on him, that's when Claxton's game just was not the same. And I get that. It happens. 33 minutes for Dinwiddie. He was 2 of 9. He definitely started out this game very cold. I think he was 1 of 6 at one point. Was 2 of 7 from 3. Did miss 2 foul shots, which I feel like he's missing a lot lately. He definitely missed one in the last game they played. But yeah, Dinwiddie's, he's being a good facilitator. He looks more aggressive. He's playing more downhill, which is nice. I feel like the first 7-8 games before Cam Thomas got hurt, he wasn't really going for drives. He was just settling for bad jump shots, and he had those moments tonight as well. But I feel like for the most part, so far the last few games, Dinwiddie has been better at that. Added 5 rebounds, 7 assists, had 2 turnovers. He was a +4 tonight. So I'm like, it wasn't like Dinwiddie's best game, but he wasn't awful either. He played so well in that last game. I forget who they played now. I keep talking about this last game, and I can't remember who the opponent was. But I remember last time they played, he was tremendous. It was the Magic. Yeah, that was right. Yeah, so he had a great game against the Magic. What did Dinwiddie have in that game? He had 29 and 9 assists, and it was efficient. He made a bunch of big threes. So yeah, he was great in that game. He hit the dagger 3 in the Clippers game. Like, I've been pleasantly surprised with Dinwiddie this year. The first few games were kind of odd. He seemed kind of out of it, but I feel like now he's back and he's playing the way he's supposed to and the way that we expect him to. Royce O'Neal, a pretty forgettable game for him. 2 of 5 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3. He made that 1 3 on top of the key, either late first quarter, early second quarter. But Royce was a team worse, -22. He really had no impact. He did have 4 assists, 1 steal, but only 5 points. I feel like Royce O'Neal has had plenty of better games than this. It just was an off night for him and didn't get many open threes. I feel like the Heat did a good job of getting out to him on the line and, getting him off the line. So that was good by them. But, just wish it was a better shooting night for him. Trenton Watford, only 10 minutes, 2 of 3 in the game. Did have a nice layup at the end and an ISO situation on Bam, I think it was. But, he had 4 points, and I feel like half of his minutes came when the game was already over, the final 5 minutes. I mean, and they kept it close at the end, but you knew it was over. Like, I feel like once it was 120 to 108, I think the score was, like, you knew it was over. So, he came in for the last few minutes, gave him some decent minutes, but still. Day'Ron Sharpe, forgettable night. He was 1 of 6 in 15 minutes. Did have 2 offensive rebounds, 5 rebounds total. Did have 1 turnover, was a -6. It's just another guy who just was not his night. Dennis Smith Jr., he got a T as well. I think he got in Jimmy Butler's face, actually, but, Dennis Smith, I feel like he knocked down a 3. Yeah, I mean, he had his moments tonight. It just wasn't great. He did have a nice driving layup at one point. I think it was the first play of the fourth quarter. He just went through the entire defense, basically made a nice layup going full speed. So, he went 1 of 2 from 3, had 5 assists, had a nice alley-oop to Claxton, I believe, at one point in the first half. He was a -9, though, but he did play some intense defense, and if he can shoot 50% from 3, I'll take it from Dennis Smith, And I did see a stat. I think it was Netscast who tweeted this or posted this on X. I'm going to get it right one day. But he posted that Dennis Smith Jr. had the best isolation defense or something like that, or maybe opponents were shooting the lowest percentage against him in isolation situations. Either way, whatever the stat was exactly, it just shows you that Dennis Smith Jr. has been playing great defense on ball this year. And that's what he was brought here to do. So it's good to see that. I wish he was a bit better offensively, or a lot better actually, but I feel like for what he was brought here to do, he's doing it. So I can't complain too much about it. Lonnie Walker, continues to play well. This wasn't his best game. Played 26 minutes, 9 of 18 total, 2 of 7 from 3. I remember that one bad turnover. I think he just dribbled the ball off his leg out of bounds. It was a bad turnover, probably early fourth quarter or so. So it was still a game at that point. But, as I said, he's playing through the injury. You can tell he's not 100%, but he's out there still making his shots. He came in right away, had a big impact when he first entered the game. I understand not starting him. I did suggest that, like, when Cam Thomas got hurt and it seemed like it'd be a multi-game injury, obviously, after the ankle, I figured, like, maybe Lonnie Walker would get, a starting nod. But I think if you put Lonnie in the starting lineup, you have no scoring off the bench. You know what I mean? So I get keeping him on the bench for now. He still plays starter minutes. He's playing 26 minutes, basically. So, it's not that bad. But, I get keeping him on the bench. Cam Thomas, of course, DMP. Harry Giles is the one guy who was always healthy but still gets DMPs. Harry Giles played in one of these games. I forget which one it was now, but he had it might have been the Boston game, one of those Boston blowouts. But I think it was at Boston, whatever game that was. But he came in, had like 7 points, 5 points, knocked down a 3. So I don't know why they're so hesitant to play Harry Giles, but it is what it is. He didn't look fantastic on defense. He looked a bit lost out there, but this is a guy who hasn't played since like 2021. So I'll give him a bit of a pass, obviously, but I just wish they gave him more minutes, especially when Claxton got hurt and was out for, 5-6 games, whatever it was. I just wish they gave him more minutes during that time, but I guess the Nets felt otherwise. Team stats-wise, let's take a look. What happened here? Nets shot 47%, Heat were 51%, Nets shot 38% from 3, Heat were at 42%. The Heat shot 95% at the line, a pretty underrated stat from this game. The Heat were 23 of 24 at the free throw line. The one miss I remember was a Butler free throw back rim after an N1, but the Nets were 21 of 27. So, that could have been the difference in the game right there. I feel like if the Nets were the team that shot the free throws well and the Heat weren't, then this probably would have, changed the outcome of the game. But, got to give credit where credit's due there for Miami. The Nets had 8 more rebounds. The Nets had 3 more offensive rebounds, 5 more defensive rebounds. Nets had 3 more assists. The Heat had 3 more steals. Teams were tied in blocks, only 3 blocks for each side, and I do think Claxton had 3 blocks, so I guess Claxton had every Nets block in this game. The Nets did have 15 turnovers compared to Miami's 9, so 9 turnovers is great. Even 15 is not terrible, but 9 turnovers for Miami is a great number to have. Nets had 4 more points on off turnovers, so Nets had 4 more points off turnovers. The Heat actually had 7 more points off of fast breaks, where I feel like the Nets have been so good in that stat this year, but that's one of the areas they clearly miss Ben Simmons, is pushing the ball in transition. The offense has slowed down way more since Ben Simmons has been out, so that's been one of the areas they miss him in. Largest lead for Miami was 17. Largest lead for Brooklyn was 6. I thought it was 5. So yeah, 6-point lead for Brooklyn at one point. I think that was in the second quarter. So, yeah, this is one of those games where I didn't really expect to win it, coming into this one. It would have been nice, and I figured when they were up 6, they had a real shot. But, as I said, Miami was rolling, and they're playing very well. The Nets did win 3 out of 4 coming into this game, and, they keep games close for the most part. As I mentioned, the game at Boston, they lost by 14 points, but for the most part, the Nets have done a good job of keeping games close. The first loss against Cleveland was a 1-point loss. You had the 5-point loss at Dallas when Luka went crazy. They hung with Boston in that game at home against Boston. They lost by 4 to Milwaukee, and you had that 14-point loss against the Celtics. But aside from that, the Nets have been in every game this year, and that's pretty much all you can ask for. The problem, of course, and we've known this now since the Stars left, is that when this team gets in a late game situation, it's tough for them to close games because they don't have a closer. Cam Thomas has taken on that role, and he's had some clutch shots in his career. That Spurs game winner back in his rookie season. He had the big shot at MSG back in his rookie season as well. So, Cam Thomas makes big shots, even in Summer League when he first, played his first games as a Net. So, he has his big moments, but the Nets definitely, they miss that presence sometimes of having a big-time clutch scorer, and especially when you had 2 or 3 guys like, Harden and KD, Kyrie, all those guys, it was a lot easier down the stretch. So, now when games are closer in the fourth quarter, it's tougher to close out games. I do get that. And, defensively, this team's supposed to have a defensive identity. it's been a little disappointing. I mean, I get Ben Simmons is out and he's a big part of what they want to do defensively, but you look at the games the Nets have lost. I mean, they let up 114, which is a pretty good amount in the loss versus Cleveland. In the loss versus Dallas, it was 125. I know Luka went crazy and made that one-handed shot, but still, it's a lot of points. It's 125. Boston had 124 in their win against us. Milwaukee had 129. The Heat had 122. So you notice the pattern here of when the Nets allow a certain amount of points, they're losing these games. Like, they can't win these track meet type matchups where, the Nets are not going to win many games this year when, it's 128 to 125 or 131 to 126. Like, they're not going to win games like that. I feel like for the Nets, you have to have a real emphasis on holding opponents to under a certain number. So I'm sure if you really look through it, you can tell that, oh, the Nets are, 0-5 in games where their opponents scored X amount of points, which it looks like, 115 is that number, like that magic number. If a team gets to 115 against the Nets, they have a good chance of winning that game, the opponent, not the Nets. So if the Nets hold their opponents to under 115, I feel like they have a good chance of winning these games. So that's just the identity of this team. It's tough to outscore teams. I mean, it wasn't many games, of course, but like during the Big Three era, like you would have scores where it was like 136 to 128 or, 133 to 128, whatever. And the Nets would be able to win those type of games. This is a different team. I know that was only 2-3 years ago, but like this is a different team, and they have to find ways to hold opponents to a smaller amount. Like you can't allow 122 to a Miami team and expect to win that game, and even 129 versus Milwaukee, 124 to Boston. You can't win those games. The Ben Simmons injury, we'll touch on that a bit. Same shit. It's disappointing. Obviously, I'm frustrated. I was hoping that this was the year, like this was supposed to be the year that Ben really looked like the Sixers version of Ben Simmons, but I think I've came to the realization that that's not going to happen. For me, I had to, see it to believe it. And, he looked better at some points. Like, I feel like he had his moments this year. He had some nice dunks and good elevation. He looked better physically, stronger, faster. But still, he had his moments where he was afraid of the basket. He just hates going to the free throw line. So Ben wasn't exactly what I wanted him to be mentally. I feel like physically he looked fine, but mentally something is still going on where he was just not going to the basket with the same force like we want him to. But he has this nerve impingement in his back, which I hate seeing that because, with the back injury thing is so frustrating because when we got him from Philly, yes, I do think he had a back injury in Philly. I think that was like right before the bubble. So it was like a few years ago. But it's been so frustrating because like when the Nets got him, he was damaged goods. Like I don't even know how that trade went through and how Ben Simmons passed the physical because as you guys know, when we acquired Ben Simmons that year, he didn't play a single game. He sat out the entire series versus Boston when they got swept. And, I just don't know how a trade goes through where a guy has a back injury that, 3 or 4 months later requires surgery and he didn't even play in a game. So it's like, it's crazy. Like, I don't know how the Nets managed to fumble that. I know that, Harden and Philly didn't work out too well and it hasn't worked out in LA so far. But at the same time, like you can't trade for an injured player. Even Seth Curry, I think, was injured in that game. I think Seth Curry had an ankle injury when he came over here. I do believe he had off-season surgery that year. So I don't know. Sean Marks was just saying, I just want Harden out of here. He took 2 injured players, basically. I know that's the past, but we're still here today dealing with these Ben Simmons injuries. And I've kind of just reached a point where I just don't expect Ben to ever get back to what he was. Still a young guy, right? Ben, I think, is around my age. I think he's like 26, 27. He's 27, yeah. So it's like, 27 years old, but it feels like, since 25, I feel like his best days are behind him. So I hope I'm wrong. And, I like rooting for him now because I feel like everyone is so against him. But, it's tough because you see these times where he could drive to the basket, he could take these shots, and he just defers and doesn't take those chances. So, that kind of stuff sucks, but hopefully he's back soon. I do know that Ben Simmons' agent said it's not a long-term thing. I don't know what to believe there, but as I said coming into the year, I'll believe it when I see it. So when I see him back out there and when I see he's probable or when he's actually playing in a game, then I'll get excited. But I do believe, because I think people have that question of like, does Ben Simmons, is it even worth like playing him? And I do think it is. I do think Ben Simmons makes the Nets a better team. I don't love him and Claxton playing together, which is something that may have to be sorted out at some point. Of course, it's a contract year for Claxton. Ben Simmons has, I think, 2 years left, including this year. So 2 summers from now, Ben Simmons should be a free agent. But, you know, I want to see if they can coexist. Ben Simmons and Nick Claxton's a great defensive duo, so hopefully that can work out. But it's been a frustrating year for Simmons, obviously. All right, so schedule-wise going forward, they play Sunday at 3, which I hate that time. I really hate that time. I'm just trying to watch football on Sundays in the afternoon, and they got to throw the Nets on at 3. This happened, of course, last Sunday against the, was that the Magic game? No, that was some other game. I forget. It was the game they played terribly and they won. I think it was the Wizards. That had to be the Wizards game because the Nets played like crap in that game and they still pulled it off, which was nice. That was a nice comeback win. I haven't talked to you guys since that game. I think they were down 5 with like 4 minutes left and, made some nice plays. Dinwiddie had the steal and McHale made a big shot, I think. So that was a nice comeback win by them. But then again, it was the Wizards. So, but yeah, Philly's coming off a loss. They lost to Boston last night. I'm assuming they play another game before then. Let's just see. I want to see. Maybe Philly's on a back-to-back, which would actually help us out a lot. Philly is going to play on Friday. All right, so they have a day in between, so not exactly a day off, or not exactly a back-to-back. So that's a shame. But let's see the Nets schedule going forward. So home versus Philly Sunday. Another decent break here. They don't play till Wednesday, so, a lot of breaks here. So they're at Atlanta next Wednesday. Home versus the Heat on Saturday. Then a back-to-back there. They're going to play Chicago. So Miami, Chicago on a back-to-back. They are home, though. Then Toronto at home, Charlotte at home, and Orlando at home. Then they have that 9-day break for the, the in-season tournament finals. So you have Philly, Atlanta, Miami, Chicago, Toronto, Charlotte, Orlando before this break here. So I'm trying to think, what should their record be? I'm going to be honest, they're probably not going to beat Philly. They've looked great this year. I do think they can beat Atlanta. They can probably split between Miami and Chicago, so you're looking at 2-2. Toronto hasn't been great, I feel like, but they have a lot of length, and that can give the Nets some problems. I feel like maybe the Nets now are more, well-built to beat them. So maybe they win that game. I'll give them, I don't know. Let's say they're 3-3 at that point. And then I think they can beat Orlando again. So they can be how many games is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 games. I think they can go 4-3. I really do. I think they can go 4-3 in that stretch. Your best bet is to beat Atlanta, Chicago, Toronto, Charlotte, Orlando. I feel like they can win those games. They could beat Miami at home. I feel like, as I said, the Nets have done a good job versus Miami since they've gotten Mikal Bridges and all those guys. So maybe it works out for them once again. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We'll see when Cam Thomas and Ben Simmons get back. And, as I said, they have that break. So I'll talk to you guys before that break for sure. I'm trying to think when is the best time to make a reaction. Maybe after Atlanta next Wednesday, or maybe one of those Saturday night, or maybe the game after Miami on Saturday night on the 25th. We'll figure it out. But yeah, stay tuned for that. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys next time.